That's going to illuminate. Whoever wants it, you bet. Yeah, exactly. Check 1, 2.
Oh, do it.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2 all the way across, all the way across. Check 1, 2. Okay, let's go ahead and, is that one working for that? That's going to be the,
Yeah.
oh, okay. We'll switch it. Yep, exactly. Good job. You're hired. Oh, where'd it go? It isn't showing up here.
Anyone need a pen? Got pen. Come on, go. I'll be right back.
There we go. And under HD, yeah, let's go over just a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Yep, exactly. Check 1, 2, test 1. Think you guys are all set.
Up there. Oh, it's recording.
It is recording. Do you want me to?
You can pause. Up there, or
All righty. If we're all ready, I will be calling the January 9th S&A Committee meeting to order at 3:02 p.m. First, going on to roll call. Committee Chair Matheson is here. Vice Chair Ba.
Present.
Parliamentarian Rachel.
present.
Eros.
Here.
Abby.
That red one.
Present.
Austin.
Present.
And we are missing Alexander Cordone. And is there anybody else currently on the committee that I'm missing? Okay, sounds good. Oh, Professor Zhu.
Hello.
Awesome. Ready. With that, we will be going into the reading of the agenda. And once somebody has a motion to approve it, we can.
Motion to approve the agenda as written.
A second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All righty. Moving on to the approval of the meeting minutes. I believe that has been sent over to us in the calendar invite. So if you could look over those. Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to approve minutes as written in our calendar.
Can I get a second?
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. Motion passes unanimously. Alrighty, moving on, we have our reports. Currently, there are no reports from the chair, so we'll move on to reports from our advisors.
For reports, I did want to let you know that Joel Clucking did approve the recommendations that you guys made at the last meeting. With the exception of the student union building, the theater lighting, that one needs to go to the Board of Trustees. So the other ones were approved, and we'll communicate with those areas. And that is, I believe, the only report I have.
Alrighty. As for reports from ASCWU, there are none. So we'll be moving on. There's been no communications received. We'll have the first call for public comment. If there's no public comment, we will be moving on to our first item on new business, base funding requests. Item 1, Circ Accounting and Student Funds Financial Manager / S&A Committee.
Before we get going on those, I just want to kind of hop in here a little bit before so that we can talk about the process. As you can see that I should have probably mentioned it under advisor reports. Each base funding area is going to get 10 minutes to do a presentation and then 10 minutes for question and answer. So very similar to supplemental. Make sure that you have your binders with you, and it should be organized by date and hopefully by the calendar. So you have a calendar on the first page, and then the tab should reflect the dates of each meeting. What's in the packet, so like for Circ Accounting is your first one. You should see the request. So this is what they submit when they ask for money initially. And it kind of talks about what the money is going to be used for. The next page is going to be the budget. So this is showing what they're asking for. It should include, excuse me, other funds received and then how they plan to spend it. So like in Circ Accounting, they have some student payroll, some non-student payroll, some goods and services. You'll find an organization chart so you can see how many people work there. This will typically be staff. And then you'll have the program review. So these are documents that are required every year. This should be a current year look, so how they're spending the money this year. And then the annual report. And that is how they spent their money last year. So every area should have basically the same things. There's going to be some things that are unique, like, for example, we'll hear from the bond payment today, not the actual bond payment. You'll hear from me. Nobody's paid out of that budget. That is strictly to pay the bill. But for the most part, that's kind of how this is all made up. You have a binder how-to form. So this is really a lot more detail. Kind of just go through, make sure you take notes. So this is your documents to be able to take notes, jot things down, because at the end, we're going to go and decide how the funding is going to be allocated. Yes.
So I have a few clarifying questions for myself and the rest of the committee.
Okay.
First, for those of you who aren't aware, base funding is every 3 or 4 years, all the areas that are funded specifically by the S&A committee come back to us to present their case, basically, why they should be given this amount of money for the next 3-4 years. This is what we've done. This is what we're doing, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we are working on now, in addition to supplemental funding when they roll in.
Correct.
For base funding, do we have, I guess I'll put that at the end.
Thank you.
For base funding, are we going to decide after seeing all the presentations first?
Yes.
Okay, so we will not be doing any deliberation on base funding until
No.
the very end. Okay, cool. Third, will we find out the total number we're working with for base funding as a whole at the end, or will we learn it?
So the base funding amount that you'll have is really based on estimate of how much revenue we think will come in from student fees, which is the major driver of that. By student fees, I mean the S&A fee that you all pay with your tuition. Of course, the major driver of that is how many students are going to show up next year to pay that fee. We don't have that number, and it's of course an estimate. We don't have that information yet. So as we get closer, we have more. There's some metrics that they use to try to figure out how many students will come, and that will give the amount that will be allocated. Probably not till the end. But what everything that I know is it's pretty much flat. So I would expect to be right at, oh, well, I can't, I don't have it in front of me, but 5.5 or something. What is it?
It would be around 5 million, 5.5 million. So, for the committee, I have poured through the entire document before to get ahead of time. So I would have
Which document?
the all of the base funding
From
requests
last year.
from this year
Oh, okay.
and last year. So in total, all of the base funded areas are requesting around 500,000 more than last year. So that is the level of variance that we should consider when considering base funding.
And I would just say that as you're listening to these presentations, my hope is that you're not looking at them and saying, we're going to cut this one or I don't value that one. I think that when we're talking about allocations and reductions, and especially going into the next couple of months, I think that the important part is to hear what the people are saying and to understand if it is an appropriate use of the funding. And because you also don't have to allocate all of it. I mean, there's a lot of sort of variables there, and I don't want to get off on the step of like saying, okay, you guys are cutting $500,000, because what you want to be looking at this is how can we serve the students the best by allocating this funding? And you're right. There's always going to be more people or more money being asked for than what's available. I mean, that's always going to be the case. Your challenge is how can you allocate the money in the most appropriate and effective way?
And I'm in 100% agreement with Aaron. Even though people inevitably are going to ask for money as costs get higher and higher every single year, the only thing I want this committee to consider is, will this benefit the student body, and is this a proper use of student funds? If both are a yes, then both are a yes. Alrighty. Well, with all that, I think we can go into.
I'm going to just continue going through the binder. So taking notes is going to be really important. And having if you have time to look at these ahead of time, like Alex mentioned, these funding requests are for the next 4 years or 3 years. I'm sorry, for the next 3 years. So some of you may have been graduated and into your career by the end of this. So these are important decisions that you're making. If you come up with questions, maybe while a presenter is presenting, then jot those down so that during your time, and when you're asking your questions, try to craft them in a way that you'll be able to get as much meaningful information out of the person. And then if there's a question that comes up later, we can always reach out through email and get additional information. So it's not like you miss your opportunity. There's going to be more questions. So the binders will be kept in the circuit counting office where Trent's at. we try to keep them so that they're available for you when you come to your meeting. If you want to visit with your book, refer to anything, there's just so much information in there that it is pretty difficult. And if you're able to review the upcoming presentations before, that's probably going to save some effort as well. The deliberations will be in March. And all of the information is electronically stored on our Teams channel. So if you go out to Teams, you should be able to find all these documents. And if you can't, then just send us a message and let us know. We'll help guide you over there. It's in the similar team. It's in the same team as the supplemental. Also, there's a deliberation rubric. So these are not required. This is not how we grade everybody, but it is a tool for you all if you find it helpful to kind of have a standard, like sort of set of questions and thoughts. Really, it's gathering your thoughts. You don't have to fill it out for each area. And if you do decide it's something that you want to do, then let us know and we can make you some more copies. And again, just remember that everyone has 10 minutes to present. So if there's a presenter, we don't want to raise our hand in the middle of their presentation or anything. We want to make sure to give them their full 10 minutes and then additional time for questions. Okay. Then last thing is the chair can, of course, call a vote to extend the presentation or the questions. Just keeping in mind that, you know, the calendar gets pretty full, so we want to try and ask the right questions. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. You want to go first? Okay. Yes, I'm going to just add that we sort of use this first day to do these particular ones because it's like a training. So this is your kind of practice run. And Trent.
I was going to say, it's kind of mine too. This is my first time presenting to you. I'm excited. I don't know. Should we admit Ruben or not? I guess we should. We'll admit Ruben. Alrighty. Slideshow. Alrighty. Hopefully everyone online can see this. I believe you all should. So to start with these two, these ones are actually two separate requests. So whether we want to do questions at the end or halfway through, we can stop, ask questions, and then move on to the next one. So the first one up is for CIRC accounting. So for those of you who do not know, CIRC is located downstairs, just kind of right below us. And we provide accounting and banking services to clubs and organizations that work with students throughout the year. And that's kind of our main goal. A little more on that. Let me move this over here. So we do budget and accounting support for students, S&A reimbursements processing and funding assistance, fiscal guidance for S&A, student union and rec departments, as well as hands-on professional experience for student staff. So our total request this year is $85,705. This is another reduction from the previous year. Again, one thing I kind of want to mention, and it's going to be the case for both of these requests, is this department is in flux this year. So I think you all are aware, but about 2 months ago, Erin stepped over to her treasurer role. And so in that, an opportunity presented itself to where we can try to reduce some costs to the S&A committee by combining with enterprise accounting. Enterprise accounting is basically the CIRC accounting department, but for housing, dining, parking, bookstore. And so we are still working through those that realignment, to be honest. Once we have a solid change, we will come back and present that solid change. But in the time being, we are requesting $85,000. And what is that going to go towards is salaries and benefits for 2 full-time fiscal employees. I believe Lacey's here. She used to be the S&A manager over there. We had up to 4 in the past, and so we've reduced 2 for some previous funding cycles. Move this over. Do you have a question, Aaron? No. Okay. Cool. And then more importantly, where the rest of it goes is we employ as many as 7 student staff, also along within our enterprise side as well. And then kind of the rest goes towards general office supplies, paper, printers, things like that. And so this is the first S&A request. I can either pause here and you all can ask questions, or we can move to the second request and questions at the end. Keep going. Cool. Well, maybe not. Cool. Alrighty. So the second part of this request is the student funds financial manager. So as I mentioned, Aaron was the student funds financial manager. I am now filling that role. This supports, and I'm just going to keep moving this back and forth. The student funds financial manager has the responsibility to provide timely and accurate fiscal information relative to the services and activities fee fund, as well as the student union and recreation center fee. And so I won't read all this here, but if you look down here at the bottom, some things we do: budget development, forecasting and reporting, budget policy, making sure appropriate use of funds, right? S&A has a lot of rules, which you all are familiarizing yourselves with, so we assist in that. Budget reconciliation training, so for all those other areas, as well as managing the CIRC accounting office. All righty, last time here. So our total request is staying the same as the prior year, 120, 406. That is to fund the one position plus some goods and services for the office. As I mentioned, as we have a more final plan with how it will work between the auxiliaries and S&A, we do plan to come back to the committee. At this time, we are asking the full request with hopes we can provide some savings. With that, that is my presentation. Short and sweet. There we go. Questions?
This would also be a great time for you guys to kind of practice some questions. So I'm
Yep.
going to start, and we can put Trent in the hot seat.
Do it.
Can you go back to the CIRC accounting one? I'm curious how you can fund 2 full-time positions and 7 students with $85,000.
That is a great question. So this is not all the funding for those positions. One thing we are trying to do, and I think probably the auxiliaries would be another example of this, is we try to get as much funding as possible from external sources. So for example, if one of these FTE does work for the scheduling center, we make sure the scheduling center pays a portion each month towards CIRC accounting. If it's for rec center, vice versa. Okay.
This is not to be mean to Trent. This is just trying to kind of, and because he's not as familiar, so that was unfair. This budget also gets a portion of funding from the rec fee, because we do all of their accounting. And so it's only this budget, and you can see in your book, if you look at the budget page, this one here. So the S&A allocation is 85,000, but they get other funding to support the rest of the office, from student union fee, because we help the scheduling center and the rec center. Sorry.
No, that was more clarification. Thank you, Aaron. Lacey, or well, I'm still learning all the processes, to be honest, so I might phone a friend here.
At this point, they've been pretty much set. So that's actually a great question, and probably something that you might want to think about relooking at. But for For the most part, we have a whole FTE. We have 2 FTE in the office, and one of them mostly works for rec and scheduling.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think we will continue to relook at the alignment, especially with the merging of accounting departments.
Sorry. Are there any opportunities or events to push for more funding from these other areas?
So yes, there is. So there will be, we just don't have quite that number yet. Some of that's already reflected here. So I think this is almost $20,000 less than the previous ask. So we are trying to reflect that there for the Circuit County budget. The student funds financial manager currently is flat.
And then just to remind you all, this budget pays 1 full-time staff and all of the students. So the S&A portion of the Circuit accounting budget is paying for the club accounting piece. So I don't know if any of you are in clubs or have come down to the office, but the S&A pays for all of the club accounting staff and the FTE.
If this money is supposed to go towards paying for the clubs and making sure that we have opportunities for students to create RSOs, how do we end up with periods of time where we are unable to allow the students to create new RSOs?
That is not part of this budget. So this budget is really only looking at so let's pretend Robbie she used to own a hot dog place. So she always says, pretend I'm part of the I Love Hot Dogs Club, which I promised I would never say, but here we are. If I'm part of that club and I do like a bake sale, I make money, I bring it into the Circuit Accounting office. The Circuit Accounting office is really the bank for the student clubs, kind of like the ASB fund. So the clubs have to go through the Slice office to get approved as a RSO, and there's that whole process. And once that's all done, we hold their money. We provide banking support. So if you're in a club and you're going to get reimbursed, there's paperwork. You would come to the Circuit Accounting office, do deposits. We also help provide change boxes for events and all kinds of different services for the clubs once they're established. But that's a great question.
Thank you very kindly. Follow up. We've established that there are other sources of funds for this club. I mean, it's not for this club, but for this pool. Are there any plans that y'all are aware of that will, within the next 3 years, potentially expand the options for adding resources to this particular pool? That we recognize that there's the S&A allocation, and then there's those other places where y'all get the money from. My understanding is that is set, but is there any chance that within the next 3 years y'all can find not just more money from the already established donors, but from a new source?
So the other sources support the other functions of the office. So the office does the Circuit Accounting and clubs. We do the other portion pays for those other services. Because if you all were funding an office to support clubs and they were supporting the rec center, you'd be like, that's not what S&A should be for, because rec center has their own fee, of course. So I think it really is going to be based on the allocation of work. If all of a sudden, the rec center is asking for a lot more work, that might increase if they need to hire more employees to support that. But this money is really they're calculated as what it costs to support the clubs, the club accounting, and that kind of thing. So it's really going to depend on changes in the workflow.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add, if we ever did take on new business processes throughout the 3 years, right, that's where we would try to seek additional funding sources from those individuals if we started doing services for other people outside S&A.
I'm looking through the packet here, and I'm seeing a fiscal year review for 2025. I'm not seeing the exact requested amount for 27.
Because on the report is looking back to last year. So you all are able to see how they spent their money for the last 4 years. You know, did they spend it all? Did they leave money on the table? Did they overspend? Did they spend too much on salaries? So that's not going to reflect the request going forward, but it should show you what they have done with the money.
And can you go back to the slide with the request
For circuit counting?
for the S&A fee annual program?
This one? Okay. This one or the other one? Sorry. Okay. Nope. There we go.
Now, Alex, this one is the one that currently we're putting half of this salary back into supplemental this year. And there just hasn't been a final decision made on how that's going to go for next year. So Joel asked us to include the full amount for this budget request at this point in time. We're hoping that by the time deliberations come and stuff, we'll have figured that out.
All righty. Well, are there
Any
any
more
further
questions?
questions? No? All right. Thank you, Trent.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Admin fee or bond payment?
Bond payment.
Bond payment? Is that
Bond
what
payment's
we're
next, yeah.
doing?
Okay. I know this isn't the most popular area that you all fund. So we're going to talk about the student union bond payment. You all are familiar with the student union building. It's this building. It is the central hub of student life at CWU, arguably. We combine student services, dining, recreation, event spaces, and student org offices. Designed as a student-focused facility to support engagement, community, and success. And it's probably one of the most heavily used buildings on campus, serving thousands of students daily. We are requesting to maintain $850,000 allocation for this budget. The students formally approved the CERT construction and long-term S&A funding model in 2004. Okay. So we are at year 22. This created a student obligation to support the bond for its full 30-year term. Continuing funding honors the commitment made by past students for future students, and this building exists because students agreed to share the responsibility. We're in the final decade. 2034 is when this building will be paid off, and we'll probably need some work by then. Ending the S&A funding would not align with the original agreement, of course, between the university and the student body that entered into that agreement. If the funding was ended, the university would default on the bond, which obviously would impact not only future capital projects and borrowing for the university, but also the current and future students. Some things, you know, if you had a car, you could sell the car, but you can't really sell the building. So you're kind of stuck here. And it continues long-term student commitment through 2034. And that's really all I have to say. I mean, it's not as glamorous as some, but we have to pay the bond payment, and I am happy to answer any questions that you guys might have about this. Yes.
I just have one. So I'm reading that There's an anticipated reduction of S&A revenue, and that the request is reduced by 20%. Is this number here with that reduction already, or is that fourth?
Well,
I'm not suggesting that we should cut it. I'm just
Oh,
asking.
no, I
take that
hope
into
I
account.
submitted the right stuff. There is no reduction. And actually when, I should probably not say this on public meeting, but when we did that reduction, I thought we were reducing all of them. So that was when I was brand new. And they were like, you can't reduce the bond payment.
Thank you
So
for the clarification.
thank you for asking that. No, there is no reduction. It's just a set amount, and this is going to be the same amount for the remainder of the bond.
All right. Do you have any other questions? All righty, moving on.
It's not the most exciting one, that is for sure.
On to the CWU administrative fee.
Oh, thank you. And the only thing less attractive is the admin fee. Okay. So the admin fee is actually got a really interesting history. What does the admin fee do? It really supports the overhead that is related to the S&A activities. So Trent's here, he's an S&A funded area. There's associated labor costs. There's payroll costs. There's, all of the costs that go along with managing and running student government, SLICE. Huh? Yeah, travel. So a little bit of background. S&A fees cannot be used for general university overhead. That sounds like exactly what I just said, that we use them for. But the thing is it must be tied to services provided to S&A departments and purposes. So years ago, there was a dispute. I think we've talked about dispute resolution in here, that if you guys approve something, goes to up above, there's a dispute resolution process. This went through that because it was like, you can't just charge a flat rate to this area, because that could include potentially part of parking services, which I guess that's a bad example because we have a parking lot. So that's probably not a good example, but or academic areas, like academic overhead, this never should have S&A fee funding. So we went through the dispute resolution process, and the university did a really good job of then taking and looking at the specific costs that are related to S&A. And we can do that because we have funds, different funds. So we're able to look at the costs that are in those funds. So it is pretty easy to get those out. These are some of the services that are covered. And as you guys know, in the Killian, a review of the administrative costs is required periodically, which is great because we do that every 4 years. And we have a lot of data to support the request. Okay, so AP and travel. They process all vouchers, invoices, and disbursements of payment and purchases of all of your goods and services, as well as the clubs. So the clubs are sort of involved in this too. The cost to the university, $319,000 a year. The S&A percentage is 5.2%. So this is the AP and travel costs that are related to S&A. Human resources, they process all of the student hiring, as well as the staff hiring, paperwork, employment, benefits, insurance related services, background checks, all of the things that you all, anybody needs to be employed and supported. comes at a cost of about $3 million a year. S&A is 10% of that for $309,000. IT support, I mean, we're using it. We're in it. We're living it. All of the enterprise-wide applications, PeopleSoft, which is our, system, Oracle, databases, all the different, not Canvas, there I go. Not Canvas. Total university cost, which probably does include that, is the, or doesn't include that, is the 5.5 million. S&A 2%, 2.4%. For a total cost of $133,780. And then we all know what payroll does, but not just issue paychecks. They also have a lot of tax remittances and things like that. And S&A's portion of that, is that right? Okay. Is $21,302. Then we've got the purchasing area. So sometimes the areas will go into contracts. I think Slice is a good example when they have headliners and people that come to campus. 65,000 almost for S&A. And then the student financial services. So that's the student accounts area, and they of course process the refund, like financial aid and stuff, but that's not part of this. This is really as it relates to the clubs and any kind of account payments that are coming in and things that need to be processed through student accounts. 45,000. So that equals almost $600,000. And Joel, our CFO, is fully aware of some of the budget constraints that all the areas are under. And so, oh, do you happen to have that last year's number? So the total ask for admin fee is $331,000, and that equals the amount that the committee allocated last year, or last funding cycle, minus 26.5%. So the university is really, in this case, really trying to help support students by lowering the overhead for those areas. So admin fee is asking for $331,192, which should be equal to what they're getting right now. Any questions about admin fee? No? Okay. No,
I have a few. I'm sorry.
you're fine.
All right. Beginning with the response for how does the program support the university's vision and mission mentions calculation methods used to approximate the costs of providing these services. Can you tell us about those methods? What specific calculation methods we're talking about?
Yeah. Is it in team? This is the one I sent you, right?
Will say the first page of the admin fee form at the number 6 question, they talk about like the metrics that they use for assessment. I don't know if that's exactly what we're talking about, but I thought to point that out because they go into detail on like where they're getting these percentages from.
Yeah, I actually had a separate question for that. I was hoping that we could see, I was just going to ask if in the future we could prepare a slide or bring a slide that shows those metrics so that we don't have to do this.
It's right here.
Glorious, thank you. I'm just looking at that for,
We can add this to your book as well.
that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, so all of the area, the pockets are here, the kind of buckets. And these are the total department costs. You can kind of, if we go down to like, trying to think like calculation one, there's a lot of information in here as far as number of, so for this one, analyze the unique check numbers in the reference line for 4 years, and then used a check to ID query from HR to attach the name so they could identify. Yes. So as I mentioned, this has gone through litigation and mediation. And so the university is very, we definitely make sure that we are able to support the costs here. So is there one in particular?
No, I just wanted to see that and hear the way that you did it.
Oh.
Thank you. That
Yeah,
was-
and then for like, I'm trying to see, so here in this column, it says like the number of voucher lines represents the most discrete measure of usage for both the accounts payable and travel department. So there, you can't be like exact, right? But you have to try and really come up with a very reasonable and logical method. And so if you're looking at like for accounts payable, you might assess, well, it costs, you know, however much per check, and then determine how many checks are issued, and we can tell the fund. And so that's where the 591,107 comes from. And this was the most recent assessment. But as I mentioned, the CFO was just not comfortable coming and asking for such a large increase, even though those are actual costs. But that he just didn't feel like it was right to put that on the students. And so it's keeping with kind of the status quo. And then because there was that 20% reduction that was being requested, I think he wanted to just go a little bit further for you all and did 26%.
Thank you. That was really cool to see. I got one more question. Can you tell us about the PeopleSoft and Oracle systems maintained by this allocation?
Well, it's not going to be separate systems that are maintained by the allocation. It's going to be a portion of, you know, because we have one like PeopleSoft system. And so it's probably in the IT. I'm just blind. This one? Is it, every non-student university employee must access enterprise application. The most accurate measure of usage is the number of non-student S&A employees as a percentage of total non-student employees. So that's for the information. And then this one here. And it provides the technical support for enterprise-wide applications.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, in the back. Oh, I thought you were had. No, go ahead. That's actually helping support the humans that are supporting the software.
That's really cool to know. Thank you for your addition.
Thanks, Lacey.
I honestly kind of forgot the sentence I was trying to say.
That's okay.
Basically, I think we all appreciate the 6% cut on top of the 20.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, on top of the 20%. I don't expect you to know about like each department necessarily, but do we know how that might affect like the kind of functionality and ability to have these departments do their jobs well, if that makes any sense?
So basically the people still the job has to be done. It's a great question. The efforts, the people, all of the things. So it's just that the university side is going to take on a larger percentage of those costs. So the cost will still be there. It's just that the S&A portion is less. Yes.
Well, if we are treating this like a real,
Oh yeah.
alrighty.
Hit me with your questions.
So I'm constantly hearing how the university is in a multi-million-dollar deficit. And I'm hearing that we're going to get cut even further from state cuts. to kind of piggyback off of Rachel's question, if I'm not encouraging them to take more from the S&A pot, but if they are going to take less, I want to ensure that they're not going to be cutting corners in other areas or the departments, because we've had a lot of that, frankly, already. I want to ensure that if they're asking for this much, this is a functional amount.
So this is the same amount that they have this year. And these areas, so some of the things that you'll notice that are not on here is like the non-accounting, let's say accounting. You have an accounting group that is paid for S&A. So general accounting, where I've moved to, they're not paying for those services. So after the mediation, I think it was really parsed down to what are the essential services for S&A. These are the same essential services that are around for every area on the university. I think that when it comes to budget cuts, the way that the admin fee money is used is on those services, and I don't think that this reduction is going to cause those kind of issues. And honestly, this is a large dollar amount to me. But if, you know, a couple $100,000 is a large dollar amount to S&A, if that is what sort of tips the scale, you know, that's not going to be what tips the scale for the university, if that makes sense. I mean, it's not like it's nothing. But I think what you're talking about, Alex, is something that has a few more zeros on it.
And I have one more question.
Sure.
So, with the bond payment and the administrative fee, I am noticing a significant portion of student dollars are going towards kind of non-student activities. The bond payment, I understand. The the admin fee, it makes sense in the current state of the circ. Historically, how did this admin fee even come to be under the S&A category? Was it a contract between the building of the circ and the student fees that would go into it?
No. It is actually the admin fee is assessed to all areas around campus. Because anybody who gets a paycheck is a sort of a you know, utilizing those services. And while you know, the let's say the academics have tuition funding and stuff, then the way that you fund those overhead areas is through this type of allocation. Otherwise, it would be, you know, coming out of, I mean, you have to fund HR somehow. You're not gonna have a fundraiser for HR. They would never probably, or any other, you know. And so you have to fund them somehow. So the university determined that the way to do that was through this administrative fee. And as I mentioned with S&A, like other areas pay a portion, maybe a percentage of revenue, or it's different. But S&A is the one that is really very specific about this type of a calculation to make sure. And I would argue that these are student activities that this money is supporting, that the bond payment, this is the students' building. I mean, if you had, I don't want to pick on President Woolpart too much, but if he moved his office in here, you all would probably want to charge him rent because this is your all's building. And so, but you guys also, you know, have to pay to support the areas that you're funding. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think that that it was just something that came about as a way to fairly fund the support areas. But that's a good question. Yes. You in the back. I'm gonna bring you sorry. Well, you're not, the AI is not not the official.
So what I was going to say is that Central has a centralized model for all the business functions. And part of the reason why we're there, which is why we're kind of going through this rigor more of the payroll office and HR. So all of those are centralized functions. And part of the reason we went that model is because it's a cost saving model. So if we had an HR department in every academic department to process that, it obviously would increase the cost for that. And so this just kind of highlights, just backing up what Aaron was trying to say, is because of that centralized model, there needed to be some sort of allocation or methodology to essentially assess those costs.
Thank you, Lacey. Also, Lacey is our director of finance. So she's my boss. So tell her I'm doing good. Okay, great question. This is kind of a more complicated area because it's not like, one of the ones that you're providing a service directly to a student. These are very indirect services, but super important.
Alrighty, do we have any more questions? Alrighty, before we continue on to supplemental, we are, oh wait, no, this is scheduled out for until 5. Oh, never mind then. Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, we will move on to our supplemental request. All right. Our only item on there is the student wage increase.
$94.55. This is to help all of the departments who are employing students to offset some of that, most of it, hopefully, increase. How I calculated it, I know that's the question. Someone. I went through their budgets, their forecasts, and I took all of the student wages that they have forecasted for the remainder of the year. The minimum wage increase was effective January 1st. So January through June, this is what is in our budget system. So well, that's probably not the right word, but so for like the art gallery, they have 5,500 in student wages. And so we're asking for an additional $156 for that, which would offset that 47 cents an hour based on how many hours or how many hours I think that they have in there and so on and so forth. So there's a couple, so like this. The ECLC, for example, their full amount of wages is almost 6,000. But when I look at their revenue, they only get about 32% of their revenue that's in their budget from S&A. And so I felt like it would be appropriate to only ask the committee for that percentage of the wage increase. And same thing, I'm just going to hide one of these so I can. Actually, I don't know why I'm not just looking at the screen, but let's hide some of this. So we also have the same thing, like we had mentioned when we did the circuit counting request. Circuit counting gets about 44.5% of their funding through S&A. So we are asking for the same percentage of the estimated increase. One of the benefits of doing it this way, I think, is it really prevents the need for all of these areas to individually come and ask you to increase their allocation because the minimum wage went up. That would be like 20 requests. So I have the last couple of years tried to do it this way. I think Lacey did it this way as well. I'm not sure. Yeah. So it just kind of works out a little bit better. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll let you look at my lovely spreadsheet. I didn't really know. I was like trying to make a PowerPoint, but I just wasn't really sure how, this is it. It's just that. Yes.
How do we know how much we currently have in the supplemental pot?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just reloaded this baby. Currently, 47,456.29. This is including half of my old position from December. So that keeps coming in. I don't know if you were here, but the supplemental allocations were approved from the last meeting.
For for reference for our if this were to pass, the supplemental fund after this approval would be 31,161.74
At this moment in time.
at this moment.
Yes.
And that's for the rest of this year, or that's just for the quarter?
That would be for the rest of this year as of right now.
Okay.
We expect that half of position to continue to add to your supplemental funding through June. And then any salary savings, so far I have not had any indication that we had a whole bunch of extra students show up. Have you? Okay. So probably not probably not looking at an increase as far as that goes, but yes, that's correct.
Do we have any questions? No? Righty. Well, if there's no further questions, thank you.
Can I just add one more thing? Because I think one of the important questions you all already usually ask is, what if we don't fund this? And the concern I would have is that these departments are absorbing that minimum wage increase. And I believe that the risk would be that it would reduce student hours.
I think, well, yep.
I'm gonna just respond because I feel like I'm typically the person who asks that question. I didn't because I see why we're doing this.
Well, if there are no further questions or comments, thank you, Aaron. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, with that, we have no old business. This is the second call for public comment. Oh, over there.
And I know that going through base funding is really hard work, so thank you for being on.
No.
Great
Ready?
job asking questions.
Yes. One back there.
Thorough. I don't think I've ever seen in my life. And that's really good to see. I know you have a really tough challenge ahead. You guys this year, but
And of course, I can never let a public comment period go by without making one. So I want to welcome you all back from your long break. I hope you are well rested because you're going to need it. And again, exactly what President Hondo said. I think you guys asked great questions, and keep it up.
All righty. Can I get a motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting? Yeah. Sorry, I've been told that every time I tried to. All righty. Can I get a motion on the floor?
Motion to adjourn
At,
at 4:06 p.m.
in a second?
I second.
All right. Any public comment? Or sorry, any discussion? All righty. This meeting is adjourned at 4:06 p.m.